If you're going to marry me, Olivia, you need to stop acting like our break was a loophole. My fiancé stared at me across the coffee shop table, and for a second, I thought I had misunderstood him. Then he smiled. That was when I realized he wasn't apologizing. He was defending himself. Welcome back to Karma Stories Hub. Today's story is about family, betrayal, manipulation, and the moment karma finally catches up with people who thought they'd never face consequences. If you enjoy satisfying revenge and emotional justice stories, you're in the right place. Grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get into today's story. My name is Olivia Bennett, and 6 months ago, I was planning the wedding of my dreams. I was 31, living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and working as a project coordinator for a construction company. My fiancé, Daniel, was 33 and worked in commercial real estate. We had been together for 4 years. Daniel wasn't perfect, but I trusted him. At least, I thought I did. We got engaged on a rainy Saturday evening at a little Italian restaurant where we'd had our first date. He didn't make a huge production out of it. He simply took my hand, looked nervous, and asked me if I wanted to build a life with him. I said yes. For the next 8 months, we planned everything together. Then, 3 weeks before our wedding invitations were supposed to go out, Daniel asked for a break. Not a breakup. A break. He said he felt overwhelmed by work, wedding expenses, family pressure, and the expectations of marriage. I just need some space, he told me. No dating. No seeing other people. Just time to breathe. I was devastated, but I agreed. We even set rules. No dating. No sleeping with anyone. No flirting. No dating apps. And no major decisions about our relationship until we talked again. I thought the rules were clear. 2 weeks later, Daniel called and asked to meet. That's when he said the sentence that changed everything. I didn't technically cheat on you. I stared at him. What does that mean? He rubbed his hands together. I went out with someone. My stomach dropped. You went out with someone? Once. During our break? Yes. You told me no dating. He looked away. I know what I said. I felt my hands start shaking. Who? He hesitated. Someone from work. I laughed once, but there was nothing funny about it. Daniel, who? Her name is Claire. The name hit me harder than I expected. Claire wasn't some random woman. She was the daughter of Daniel's boss. I had met her twice at company events. I remembered her laughing with Daniel near the bar at his Christmas party. Suddenly, little moments I'd ignored started connecting in my head. The late work dinners. The phone turned face down. The sudden interest in a particular restaurant across town. I asked him how long this had been happening. Just recently. That answer sounded rehearsed. I went home and barely slept. The next morning, Daniel's younger sister, Megan, called me. She was crying. Olivia, I think you deserve to know something. My heart started racing. What? Daniel didn't tell you everything. She explained that Daniel had been talking about Claire for months. Not dating. Just talking. But according to Megan, Daniel had told their mother that if our relationship ever ended, Claire would probably be his next serious girlfriend. Then Megan said something that made my blood run cold. He told Mom he wanted to see if Claire was worth losing you over. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall. That wasn't a break. It was an audition. Daniel hadn't asked for space because he was confused. He wanted to test another woman while keeping me emotionally available as a backup. But I still didn't know the worst part. 2 days later, I received an email from our wedding venue. They were confirming our final guest count and asking for payment of the remaining balance. Daniel had apparently told them the wedding was still happening. I called him immediately. You told the venue we're still getting married? Yes. After you went on a date with Claire? Olivia, it was one date. One date you hid from me. He sighed. I was going to figure things out. You were going to figure out which woman you wanted. He didn't answer. That silence told me everything. I called off the wedding that afternoon. I expected Daniel to panic. Instead, he became angry. You're throwing away 4 years over a technicality. A technicality? You agreed we were on a break. A break with rules. You can't control what happens during a break. I didn't try to control you. I trusted you. He scoffed. You're making this bigger than it is. That was the moment something inside me went quiet. I realized I wasn't fighting to save my relationship anymore. I was fighting to convince myself that the man I loved still existed. I canceled the venue. I called the photographer. I canceled the flowers, the catering, and the hotel block. Every time I made another call, I felt a little less heartbroken and a little more free. Daniel's family blamed me. His mother told people I had overreacted. His cousin posted a vague message online about women who punish men for being honest. I ignored all of it. Then Daniel came to my apartment. He looked exhausted. I made a mistake, he said. I didn't invite him inside. Claire and I aren't together. I said nothing. She doesn't want a relationship with me. That surprised me. What happened? Daniel looked embarrassed. She found out about us. Us? Our engagement. Apparently, Claire had believed Daniel was single. He had told her our wedding was basically over and that the break was only a formality. When she learned the wedding was still scheduled, she walked away. But that wasn't the final twist. Daniel had also been telling Claire that his financial situation was much better than it actually was. He had promised her they could travel, move into a nicer apartment, and eventually buy a house. He couldn't afford any of it. He had been planning to use part of the money we'd saved for our wedding. Our money. When I checked our joint wedding account, I discovered that Daniel had already transferred $6,400 into his personal account. I confronted him. He claimed it was temporary. Then I showed him the bank statements. There were payments to restaurants, hotels, and gifts. His face changed. You weren't supposed to see that. No. I wasn't. That sentence was the final piece. He hadn't simply made one bad decision during a break. He had built an entire second life while expecting me to remain his safety net. I closed our joint account and documented every transfer. Daniel eventually returned the money because I told him I would take the records to the bank and our financial advisor if he didn't. I never threatened him. I simply stopped protecting him from the consequences of his own choices. What made it harder was that Daniel kept trying to redefine what had happened. For a week after the wedding was cancelled, he sent long messages explaining that our relationship had become complicated. He said he had been lonely. He said Claire had shown him attention when he felt invisible. He said the break had made him feel single. But every explanation ended with the same expectation, that I should understand. I finally called him one evening. You keep telling me why you did it, I said. You never ask what it did to me. There was a long silence. I know I hurt you. No. You know I found out. That distinction mattered. Daniel had been comfortable when he believed I didn't know. He became sorry when his choices became visible. That was something I couldn't unsee. My best friend, Rachel, helped me return the engagement gifts. Some were expensive. Some were ridiculous. One of Daniel's aunts had given us a crystal serving set with our initials engraved on it. I almost kept it. Then I realized I didn't want objects carrying the weight of a future that never happened. I returned everything. Even the champagne glasses. The wedding dress was harder. I had spent months choosing it. When I finally went to the bridal shop, I expected to cry. Instead, I surprised myself. I told the consultant I was canceling the order. She looked at me carefully and asked, "Are you okay?" I smiled. Not completely. But I'm getting there. Walking out of that store felt strangely peaceful. A few weeks later, Megan called again. She apologized for her brother. Then she told me their mother had finally confronted Daniel. Apparently, she'd asked him a simple question. Why did you risk losing Olivia for someone you weren't even sure about? Daniel reportedly had no answer. That was the part that stayed with me. There was no grand reason. No secret tragedy. No impossible misunderstanding. He had simply believed he could keep one woman while testing whether another woman might be better. And he had been wrong. Not just about Claire. About me. He thought I would stay because we'd already invested 4 years. He thought the wedding deposits, family expectations, and shared plans would make me too afraid to leave. He underestimated the moment a person realizes staying will cost more than leaving. That was my turning point. I didn't need revenge. I needed distance. And distance gave me something I hadn't felt in months. Clarity. I eventually started dating again, but slowly. I wasn't looking for another fiancé. I was learning how to trust my own judgment. Months later, I passed the Italian restaurant where Daniel had proposed. I expected the memory to hurt. It didn't. I remembered the woman I'd been that night. Hopeful. Certain. Ready to build a future. I didn't feel embarrassed for trusting him. I felt proud that when the truth became clear, I trusted myself too. 3 months later, I heard through Megan that Daniel had lost the promotion he'd been expecting. His boss had learned that Daniel had lied about being engaged when he pursued Claire, and the situation had created an embarrassing conflict at work. He wasn't fired. He simply lost the promotion and had to rebuild trust with his company. Claire also ended contact with him. And me? I moved into a smaller apartment closer to work. I started taking weekend trips. I went back to painting, something I'd stopped doing because wedding planning had consumed every spare hour. For the first time in years, my life felt like mine again. One evening, Daniel texted me. I still think we could have worked. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I replied. We could have, if you had treated our relationship like something worth protecting. He never answered. A year ago, I thought canceling my wedding meant my life had fallen apart. Now I understand that canceling it was the moment my life started coming back together. The hardest lesson wasn't that Daniel cheated. It was learning that someone can love you and still make selfish choices that destroy your trust. And love isn't a reason to ignore that. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is walk away before the wedding, before the marriage, before the betrayal becomes your normal. So, what would you have done in my situation? Would you have forgiven Daniel because technically you were on a break, or would you have canceled the wedding too? If you enjoyed today's story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another karma story.